Welcome to Public Speaking with Peter George. Do you want to be calm, confident, and credible every time you speak in public? Then stay tuned as Peter and his guests discuss public speaking tips, techniques, and tactics that help you increase your impact, influence, and income. Here's your host, Peter George.
In this episode, you're going to learn that all-important step you just can't skip. Although, if you're like most people, you want to. What's that step? Rehearsing. Are you still there? I was afraid you might have stopped this podcast after hearing the word rehearsing. Let me ask you this. Do you rehearse your presentations? Or do you rationalize not rehearsing them by saying to yourself, I know what I want to say, so I'm all set? If you do rehearse, that's great. But stay tuned because a little later in the show, you'll hear 5 tips that'll help your efforts. If you don't rehearse, why not? The most common answer I get to this question is, Peter, I just have so many things to do that I just can't make the time. Are you really willing to risk your reputation when you give a presentation at the office? And are you willing to lose sales to your competitors who did find the time to rehearse their presentations? I hope not, but that's exactly what's at stake, because your listeners are anticipating a compelling performance. And yes, every time you present, you're performing. So think about it from an audience's point of view. How would you feel if you went to a Broadway play's opening night, expecting a first-rate performance, and it was mediocre? Most likely, you'd be disappointed, to say the least. And how would you feel if it was obvious that the actors didn't rehearse, that they didn't take the time necessary to deliver an experience that you had anticipated? Well, it's the same when you, or I, or any presenter gets in front of an audience, whether that audience is 1 person, 10 people, or 1,000 people. That audience has expectations, and you and I have to meet, if not exceed, those expectations. And I don't know about anybody else, but I'm not talented enough, or maybe just not willing, to leave it to chance. Think about the people you admire. Perhaps it's a musician or a singer. They rehearse. Maybe it's an actor. We've already established that they need to rehearse. It could be an athlete. They rehearse. They just call it practicing. And think about that for a minute. Professional athletes are some of the best in the world at what they do. And for most of them, they've been doing it since they were young. Yet they practice throughout their season, and even during their off-season. Our military, police, firefighters, and first responders rehearse. They just refer to it as training or drilling. I do understand that people in these professions spend a great deal of time rehearsing, no matter what they may call it, because it's their profession, and that, unless you're a professional speaker, delivering presentations makes up only a portion of what it is that you do. Nonetheless, when you have a presentation to deliver, you should put aside the required time to rehearse. Recently, I was talking to a client and I said to him, John, let's discuss the unsexy side of public speaking, rehearsing. Before I could continue, John, who's a singer-songwriter and ex-high-level soccer player, said to me, Peter, you don't have to convince me about the importance of rehearsing. When I played soccer, I never would have thought about playing without having practiced. And as a musician, I always practice with the members of the band. We want to ensure that we're so tight that we don't have to worry about being in sync. That while we're on stage, we can focus all of our energy on our audience. John's positive mindset let us move directly to tips and techniques, and that's what you are going to learn now. My first tip for you helps you avoid one of the mistakes that most people make when rehearsing for a presentation. Let's say you're halfway through your presentation and you make a mistake. Most people would go back to the beginning and start over. You don't need to do this. In fact, I highly suggest you don't do this. Instead, go back to the beginning of that part of the presentation and restart from there. This way you're not covering your opening 20 times and your closing, the most important part of your presentation, only 2 or 3 times. With this said, you want to, and actually need to, rehearse your entire presentation when possible, but there'll be times when you only have a few extra minutes and can focus only on a particular segment. Take advantage of that time. My second tip for you is to work on your message, voice, and body language before including slides and props if you have any. Doing so helps keep you from being overwhelmed by concentrating on too many elements at once. My third tip for you is based on a rehearsal device that you already have. In fact, you probably have it with you right now. It's your phone. And here's how you're going to use it. When you're ready to rehearse, prop up your phone, set it on video, and hit record. When you're done delivering your presentation, review it, but not necessarily in the way you're thinking. The first time you play it back, turn it over so you can't see the screen. When you're listening to it, make notes. Were you clear and concise? Did you pause enough or just ramble on? Did you use fillers? Did you speak too fast or maybe too slow? These are just a few of the things you want to listen for, but I think you get the idea. Next, turn your sound off and watch the video. What did you think of your body language? Did it look natural? Did you pace? Were you looking at the floor? Did your stance demonstrate confidence or nervousness? This is just a short list of the things you can evaluate. Be sure to make notes as you go. Finally, watch and listen to the videos you normally would, looking for anything else that you might want to build upon or change. Once you've done this, make any necessary revisions and start the process all over again until you're satisfied. My fourth tip for you is to have a dress rehearsal. I know, you're thinking, really? I'm not going to be giving a major talk on stage. It's just going to be a presentation to the board. Well, that may be, but doing a dress rehearsal benefits you in several ways. One is, it solidifies in your mind that this whole thing is really happening soon. On a lesser note, it helps you decide if your choice of clothing is in fact what you want to wear on presentation day. My fifth tip for you is, when possible, rehearse where you'll be speaking. This helps you determine how and where you'll move during your presentation. And if you're not familiar with the location, rehearsing there, or even just getting to see it, alleviates an unknown variable, the environment in which you'll be speaking. Now that you've learned these 5 tips that help you with your preparation, I'll answer a question that clients often ask. I get the value of rehearsing, but what if I rehearse and it still doesn't go well when I actually deliver my presentation for the first time? My answer is this. With very few exceptions, when you deliver your presentation to your audience, it shouldn't be the first time you deliver it. Instead, when you believe it's ready, you deliver it to family, friends, or colleagues, asking for their input. Now, their advice may or may not be useful, and that's okay, because your objective at this time is to simply present in front of, as Hollywood would say, a live audience. One of my clients, Lauren, is a perfect example of this. Several years ago, I had the pleasure to work with her on a course that she'd be presenting to business people. We broke the 3-hour course into segments, concentrating on one segment per week. When we met for the second time, I asked her to present the first segment. She nailed it. From knowing and understanding the content, to using her voice and body language to support that content, to engaging her audience, she surpassed all my expectations. In fact, she did this week after week, and it wasn't long before the only thing that would have surprised me was if she had not knocked it out of the park. When we discussed her preparation, she explained, "Peter, I rehearsed for several hours a day. Then I presented it to my cat 23 times. And once I felt confident enough, I presented it to family members, making adjustments along the way." Now, Lauren not only teaches that course, but she's also regarded as a captivating public speaker, delivering presentations to business audiences of all sizes. When people learn that I'm Lauren's coach, They often compliment me, and I appreciate that. But I am in no way responsible for the foundation of her success. It's her desire to work behind the scenes, the work that most people will never see, the work that ultimately benefits her listeners. My hope for you, whether you're speaking on stage, presenting in meetings, or selling to prospects, is that you develop a mindset of doing all that's necessary in order to deliver engaging and compelling presentations. And this, of course, includes rehearsing.
That's a wrap of another episode of Public Speaking with Peter George. Be sure to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Tune in Monday when you'll hear another episode of Public Speaking with Peter George, and again Thursday for your next episode of Quick Bites, public speaking tips and techniques you can digest in 5 minutes or less. Until next time, remember, when it comes to speaking in public, you've got this.